start these videos. I never know if to go like hi or hi guys or welcome to the channel. Like I don't really know what to do. So let's get through the greetings quite fast. Hello. I know that I have not been making a lot of videos for YouTube, even for Instagram, but I did make a promise to myself that I would do this small little poetry project for the month of February, just so that the YouTube channel especially wouldn't be like this dormant place where nothing's happening. So yes, welcome to the launch. I don't want to make this too long. I don't want to talk too much. I want to keep it short and keep it about like the work that I'm presenting. So before I even start, I think I have to say this disclaimer because I write a lot of poetry, and Audre Lorde, and I'm not gonna quote her verbatim because I don't think I know it verbatim, but Audre Lorde says something about poetry being the most economic way, part of like artistry, in the sense that it's non-expensive to do. It doesn't require a lot of time. You know, you can write it between shifts. You know, you could write it at home. You can write it at work. Like some, you know, because poetry allows for that. You don't have to like have a bunch of money. Like if you wanted to make a film, you don't have to have a bunch of time. Like if you wanted to write a novel. So I think for a lot of people, poetry is the entryway or the gateway into creativity, because it's like the easiest and most economical way of getting into art. So that long-winded thing being said, and I said I wouldn't be long-winded, I don't necessarily consider myself a poet. I like to call myself a storyteller. I want to be a storyteller. At least that's kind of like the way I am trying to mold myself, is more towards storytelling, and that is non-fiction, fiction, through research, through poetry, through film, through whatever medium it is. I want to be involved in telling stories. However, because I am broke, super broke, most of the times the sort of art I can make that is most accessible to me is poetry. And I don't hate it. I do actually enjoy writing poetry, but I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there because maybe I'm putting it out there because I'm not trusting my own work. You know, imposter syndrome. But also, I just wanted to put it out there in a sense of like, I don't want to be completely defined as just a poet. In whatever I'm trying to do with these channels, whatever I'm trying to do with these videos, I don't want to kind of be limited to that poetry, just to the poetry box. Okay, that's the first disclaimer out of the way. But with me not being a poet, we are doing a small little poetry project, and this project is going to be called Adherence. So I don't know if people are familiar with adherence in medical terms, especially when it comes to medication, but it has to do with like a patient's compliance with the instructions that they've been given. Tongue twister. It has to do with a patient's compliance to the instructions that the doctor gave them, especially in terms of their medication. There we go, got that out. So in terms of HIV, it's about how are you taking the pills every day? Are you taking them at the same time? You know, because if you don't do that, what your body does, because our bodies are very smart, or perhaps let me not say bodies, what the virus does, because the virus is very smart. I mean, we're all in COVID-19, and we just see how COVID is always kind of morphing itself, always creating a new variant for its own survival. So that's what viruses are. So if you're not strict about taking your medication every single day at the same time, then I guess I don't have the medical terms for this, but the virus gets smarter and it's able to form a resistance to your medication. The best analogy that I ever got of this is, say an HIV person is a train on a track, but the track doesn't end. It's like the track is broken and you're gonna fall off a cliff. Yeah, okay. HIV person is a train and you're heading towards a cliff, the cliff being death. Although please, I'm not saying that HIV is a death sentence. We all die. So death is the cliff. By taking your pills, what is inevitably happening is you are delaying, or that train is, I don't say moving backwards, but it's staying in a place which is safe. If you get into the habit of not taking your pills very often, then obviously the train gets momentum and it gets faster, and by the time you start taking them again, maybe you're too far ahead and you're heading towards the cliff anyway. Does that make sense? That analogy, it really worked for me, but I don't know if I explained it well. But yeah, train, cliff, pills, keep, train, and safe zone. Stop taking your pills for a reasonable amount of time. Train moves forward towards a cliff, that it doesn't even matter sometimes that if you resume taking your pills, you will still head for the cliff because the train has gained momentum. The virus has gained momentum. Yeah, so that's adherence. And it doesn't just apply to antiretrovirals, which are the medications for HIV positive people, but it also applies to TB. People who are diagnosed with TB or who get TB are told to often take their pills till the very end. Like even when you start feeling better, you're supposed to take them till the end, because if you don't, your body forms a resistance to it. A resistance to it. That's a medical term. And then at a later stage, if you are to get TB again, those pills will not work for you because the virus is gaining momentum. Also, a big one for people that think that they will not get HIV or TB is antibiotics, because we know like antibiotics is one of like medicine's great inventions, something like that, right? But if you get an antibiotic prescription and you don't take your antibiotics like for the full length of time that you've been told to take them at the time you're supposed to take them, you could face a life and death situation where you go into hospital and they try that particular antibiotics that you did not fulfill the prescription, and your body would have formed a resistance to it, and there's a chance that the antibiotics will not work. So it's for all people. Adherence is for all people. And this is what I'm naming this small poetry project. It's called Adherence, and it's basically just trying to speak to this feeling and the action of just continuing, of pursuing on, of not perseverance. There we go. I was gonna say diligence. Perseverance. So it's a lot of a project. It's a project a lot about perseverance, or at least how I have persevered, and also just about literally taking pills. It's literally also just about taking pills. And I know in Sick Faces, I had previously said in my episode that a lot of people take it for granted. They say, well, you're just taking pills, it's not a big deal. But there is so much that comes with that. There's so much that comes with confronting your mortality or being actively engaged in keeping yourself alive through pill taking. That is a lot. Can I just repeat that actually? Every time you take a pill, at least for myself, right? At least for myself, every time you take a pill, you are actively engaging in keeping yourself physically alive. And that is huge. And to not take that pill would be to be negligent and participate in your own death. Now, a lot of people who don't have chronic illnesses, who don't have to have medication or like asthma pump, or are just not engaging with any sort of illness, their bodies are functioning as they should. So they never really have to think. It's like you don't have to think about breathing. So for a lot of times, I would assume, I could be wrong, say it in the comments, that people that are healthy don't necessarily think about how to keep themselves alive every day, as people who might have chronic illnesses are faced with. So it's about the heaviness of all that feeling. It's about the perseverance of all of that, that also the poetry project is about. So yeah, I'm gonna try and mix it up with some old poems that I've done, just so that it's not a super short episode. I don't want it to be a long episode. I don't know how many minutes we're on right now, but I don't want it to be a long episode, but I also don't want it to be too short. So I'm gonna mix it up with some poetry that I've done prior. And one of the first, actually, not one of the first, the first project that I ever wrote about my HIV status was called Antiretroviral treatment. And it was a series of poetry and a little bit of prose that I wrote. And I'm super proud of that work. Like, it didn't gain any sort of audience, I suppose because it was like the first, but I'm super, super, super proud of it. And today I'm going to be reading for you two poems. I'm going to be reading one poem from Antiretroviral treatment, which was the first poem I ever wrote about my HIV status. And then I'm going to read you the first poem to launch this small poetry project. And it is the self-titled, well, not self-titled, it is called Adherence. What do you call it when someone names their album names the album the same title as a song on the album? Does that make sense? I'm trying to think now about an album like that. But yeah, so this poem is sort of like the title song of the titled project, if that makes sense. So let's get into it. I'm blind, so half the time I couldn't see, but I just wanted, to act like a poet and put my glasses on. Okay. So the first poem doesn't have a title. Okay. It goes by, what does a 5-year-old know about antiretrovirals? I don't know if that's the title per se, but that is the first line of the poem. And that's the one that I'm going to be reading for you today. The first poem I'm going to be reading for you today. What does a 5-year-old know about antiretrovirals? About red blood cells and white blood cells? What does she know about counting CD4s that stay hidden even after you've opened your eyes and totaled 100 and able to seek them anymore? What does she know about stigma, except that it sounds like a sting that makes others allergic to a me? What does she know of second skins she must one day wear to protect her lover from herself? Of intimacy and sex? Of how a pussy is a prison where one awaits his death? She must only know that it matters to survive. Could I conquer? I don't know if I read that very well, so I'm gonna do like a second try. We're on 12 minutes. Try to keep this really short, but I'll read it again, and I'll try to do a better way of reading it, and we'll see. All right. What does a 5-year-old know about antiretrovirals? About red blood cells and white blood cells? What does she know about counting CD4s that stay hidden even after you've totaled 100 and able to seek them anymore? What does she know about stigma, except that it sounds like a sting that makes others allergic to a type of me? What does she know of second skins that she must one day wear to protect her lover from herself? Of intimacy and sex? Of how her pussy is a prison one awaits his death? She must only know that it matters to survive. Yeah. So it's quite hectic, especially in the last. A pussy, prison, await your death. Again, HIV is not a death sentence, but a lot of these poems are just trying to express somehow how dark and deep it feels. For me, the most predominant feeling I got when I got my HIV diagnosis, I was diagnosed when I was 3, and I only found out when I was 12. When I found out at 12, the most overwhelming feeling was not so much of I'm gonna die, which I think is actually the most natural thing to feel. But for me, it was like, who is going to love me now? And a lot of it, this dark, and at the time, even at 12, I know this is about a 5-year-old, because five years is when I remember taking my first antiretrovirals. But that being said, at 12, what does a kid really know about romantic relationships? What does she really know about not being loved? And I'm always just struck by how that diagnosis, like I found out about that diagnosis, or I was told that diagnosis, and my first reaction was, I'm so unlovable at the age of 12. So it kind of is trying to like put all those like very heavy feelings of like death, of being unloved, and being too young to understand it all. So yeah, that is the first poem. And then we're gonna go to the poem of the moment, which is Adherence. Yes, let's see, I'm just trying to see how long it is. It's not super long, but it's longer than what I just read. Okay. So here goes. Adherence. Adherence, endurance, adherence, endurance. Life clings on. Sharp claws tearing my fragile discipline, demanding of me the will to live. Every year, every month, every day, a specific hour. There's something so lonely about this breath that it takes a series of inhales and exhales, inhales and exhales to settle into this life's embrace. There's something so existential about living that it takes a series of decisions, deliberate and divine, to reach towards some destiny. You hold on, blunt teeth biting on to that breath, trudging your own lived truth. Every year, every month, every day, a specific hour. For now, it's forever. Optimistically, it's indefinite. Clinically chronic, pulse and pill, till I transition into eternity. That was a bad read. It's because of the scrolling. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's see if we can put the laptop here, and I hope it's in full. Okay, so I'm gonna read it a second time properly for you guys. If I'm not giving you eye contact, I'm super sorry. I'm super sorry. But let's do this. Okay. Adherence, endurance, adherence, endurance. Life clings on. Sharp claws tearing my fragile discipline, demanding of me the will to live. Every year, every month, every day, a specific hour. There's something so lonely about breath that it takes a series of inhales and exhales, inhales and exhales to settle into life's embrace. There's something so existential about living that it takes a series of decisions, deliberate and divine, to reach towards some destiny. You hold on, blunt teeth holding on to that breath, trudging your own lived truth. Every year, every month, every day, a specific hour. For now, it's forever. Optimistically, it's indefinite. Chronically ill. Clinically chronic. My bad. Pulse and pill till it transitions into eternity. So I did not read that one well as well. I will put the words up on my Instagram. The last little phrase, and I'll just read that one to correct my mistake, is for now it's forever. Optimistically, it's indefinite. Clinically chronic. Pulse and pill till I transition into eternity. And what I'm trying to do with this poem is a juxtaposition of the adherence of the literal taking your pills every day, making a decision to live your life every day, as well as, I think I just got the English wrong, I said juxtaposition. Okay, in this poem, I am juxtapositioning taking your pills, the literal act of taking your pills and living life and making a decision, a deliberate decision to live every day, with just the usual perseverance and endurance that we must have in life in general, whether you have a chronic illness or you don't, right? Like I said, we all gonna face death, and life can really bring you down in multiple ways, not just if you are a sick person, but in multiple ways. And it's that endurance. So I'm juxtaposing adherence of the literal pills and endurance of just life takes perseverance, man. It really does. It really, really does. And it takes deliberate decisions to live, and it takes being present to participate in it, and it just takes a lot. It really does. And I myself, as someone who is chronically ill, I feel that in having to take my pills every day. But I know for maybe a majority of you, you feel that burden. Because life is not all a burden, but you feel sometimes that burden of life, of having to really be deliberate, like, oh, today I'm gonna live in other ways, in other aspects. But for me, it's demonstrated, or it manifests, or the best analogy I have for the perseverance you must have in life is the type of perseverance I should have in taking my pills. So, yeah, this has been all over the place. This has been, I will do better. I just needed to get this video out. I just needed not to try and make it perfect or try and make it bigger than what it is. I am actually in the moment of my life where I'm having to have a lot of endurance and a lot of perseverance and a lot of hope and a lot of motivation to do the things that I love, such as writing, such as creating, such as talking, is limited. But I am trying to make a deliberate decision to live this life. So thank you to everybody that tuned in. I will post the poem on the Instagram, or I will have it written down in the description box if you're watching on YouTube. Yeah, and there will be more to come. I think I have 3 more of these, and there are some that I still need to write. We'll see if that actually happens, but there are definitely more coming next week. So yeah, like, I just hope, let's just have fun with this. Please comment, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. I really, really like engagement, especially with comments. I like comments because I like talking. So I want to talk. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you just have a really, really great, great week, a great day, a great year. Continue to adhere, continue to endure, and hopefully thrive and strive. You came, you saw, conquer.